Encouragement makes a huge difference in anything you do, and it certainly makes a difference in our efforts as disciple makers. So we hope our series in Acts encourages you to reach out and introduce others to Jesus. Coach Jon Winkleman is on deck for our next 5 episodes, so let's join him for our next message.
If I want to encourage a church or pastor in another country today, I can do it in seconds. I can send an email, a text, call them on the phone, or even have a video chat. The further we travel back in time, the more difficult it gets. Knowing the difficulty that would have been involved in simply encouraging someone in Paul's day, I am humbled and convicted by my own lack of effort in this department. Here in Acts chapter 20, Paul is on what we commonly refer to as his third missionary journey. This journey is about strengthening the churches. It is a ministry of encouragement. At the end of chapter 19, Paul faced a riot in Ephesus. That riot has calmed down, and Paul encourages the disciples there before heading to Macedonia. Paul travels through this area, bringing encouragement to the churches there. He then spends 3 months in Greece. There's a plot on his life, so he leaves and meets up with a group in Troas. Paul is encouraging these churches. He is encouraging them with his presence, and in verse 5, he is both encouraging and being encouraged through fellowship. If the letters of Paul that make up the New Testament tell us anything, it is that he could have simply written to all these churches. Instead, what we find is that whenever possible, Paul made personal visits. There is something powerful that happens when we show up in person to encourage others. In Troas, they gather to fellowship and share a meal. Paul preaches a really long sermon, and a young man falls asleep, falls out the window, and he dies. Paul goes down to him. The young man is healed. Paul goes back upstairs and talks to everyone until daybreak. The section ends by telling us that everyone was comforted by this young man still being alive. This word comforted could also be translated encouraged. In the last few verses of this passage, Luke records for us all the places they sailed and visited. Luke also gives us a reason for their haste. Paul wants to be in Jerusalem for Pentecost. Paul is trying to meet a deadline, yet he is taking time to visit churches and encourage people. Why? Believers who have been encouraged and built up are more effective, passionate, and bold. Let me repeat that. Believers who have been encouraged and built up are more effective, passionate, and bold. All of us get discouraged. All of us face trials and difficulties, and we need a brother or sister in Christ to come along and encourage us. We need one another. Look with me at what Paul does in these verses. After the uproar ceased, Paul sent for the disciples, and after encouraging them, he said farewell and departed for Macedonia. When he had gone through those regions and had given them much encouragement, he came to Greece. And when Paul had gone up and had broken bread and eaten, he conversed with them a long while until daybreak, and so departed. And they took the youth away alive, and were not a little comforted. Why does Paul spend his time encouraging and comforting churches? Because we need it. Because that encouragement enables us to share the gospel more effectively. Let me give us 2 challenges today. The first is to be an encouragement to other Christians. This means we need to pay attention to those in our sphere of influence, noticing who needs encouragement and comfort. When we see the need, we encourage. The second challenge is to accept encouragement and comfort, and out of that, share the gospel. We all need to experience encouragement. When we have been built up by others, we are energized to share the truth of Jesus. So, encourage others. Be encouraged. Tell others about the hope we have in Jesus.